that the people came up out of Jordan on the 10th day of the first month and encamped in Gilgal in the east border of Jericho. Now notice that it says the people came up out of Jordan on the 10th day of the month. And just prior to that, they were commanded to prepare victuals for within 3 days they were going to pass the Jordan. So you count that. The 10th day is the third day of that count. The 9th day would be the second day of that count. The 8th day would be the first day of that count. So on the 8th day they were commanded to prepare victuals to go across Jordan. Now, if the 8th day was a Sabbath day, then God wouldn't have commanded them to do that. So obviously the 8th day of this month was not a Sabbath. It was a common work day which allowed them to prepare their victuals, prepare food, whatever they needed to do to get ready to go on this journey through the River Jordan. So we find that the 8th day is a common work day, at least in this month of the year. Now let's turn to Leviticus chapter 23, and we're going to look at the Pentecost Dilemma. The day of Pentecost, the Bible says, was to be counted from the 50 days from the wave sheaf. And in Leviticus 23 verse 11, the Bible says, "And he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted for you on the morrow after the Sabbath." Now take special notice of that. That's Shabbat. The priest shall wave it. So the morrow after the Shabbat was the day that the wave sheaf was to be waved, and then they were to count 50 days from there. Look at verses 15 and 16 now. It says, "And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, Shabbat, from the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Shabbats shall be complete, even unto the morrow after the 7th Shabbat shall ye number 50 days, and ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord." So notice here it says you are to count the number 50 days from the day of the wave sheaf, and it says even unto the morrow after the 7th Shabbat. You're to count 50 days. So from the wave sheaf unto, very clearly, notice that, unto the morrow after the 7th Shabbat, there is to be 50 days. And notice also that it's the word Shabbat is used. It's not Shabbaton. This is a weekly Sabbath that it's referring to, Shabbat day. And please notice that the first day of the first month, the first day of unleavened bread, the 15th day of the first month, which is the first day of unleavened bread, is never called a Shabbat. Instead it's called a holy convocation, but it's not called a Shabbat. So the wave sheaf was not to be done on the day after the first day of unleavened bread, but rather the day after the Shabbat, the weekly Sabbath, whenever that happened to fall. When Christ was here, it did fall on the 15th day. The wave sheaf was offered on the 16th day when Jesus was here. So Pentecost fell on the 6th day of the third month at that time. So notice the Pentecost here with, if the lunar Sabbath calculations were correct, we're going to have a problem here. Let's look at Numbers 28, verse 26. Numbers 28, 26, it says, "Also in the day of the first fruits, when ye bring a new meat offering unto the Lord, after your weeks be out, ye shall have an holy convocation, ye shall do no servile work." So there it says, after your weeks be out. The weeks it's talking about there are the 7 weeks for the count to Pentecost. After the weeks be out, the end of those weeks, then you are to have the day of Pentecost. It was the day after those weeks were out. Okay, now Deuteronomy 16, verses 9 and 10. The Bible says, "7 weeks shall thou number unto thee. Begin to number the 7 weeks from such time as thou beginnest to put the sickle to the corn, and thou shalt keep the feast of weeks unto the Lord thy God with a tribute of a freewill offering of thine hand, which thou shalt give unto the Lord thy God, according as the Lord thy God hath blessed thee." So here the Bible says that this feast, Pentecost, is called the Feast of Weeks. And that's what it's referring to, the weeks. There are 7 weeks. Now, I know some have thought that there are 7 weeks, and then you're supposed to start your count of 50 days, and you have an additional 50 days. But that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says the Pentecost was to be at the end of the weeks, when the weeks be out. That's when the Pentecost was to be. It's called the Feast of Weeks. It's not a Feast of Weeks and then a Feast of 50 days. It's a Feast of Weeks. There were 7 weeks that were to be counted. And this was to happen in the late spring of each year. Okay. I'd like to notice something here, a calendar to illustrate how this could happen. This is, if you notice on your calendar here, it says the 8th, the 15th, 22nd, and 29th days are the Sabbaths on this particular month, the way it's ordered here. And the 16th day of the month, you notice it's highlighted in red, that would be the day of the wave sheaf. This is the first month. The 16th would be the day of the wave sheaf with this particular calendar. Now, you're to count 7 weeks, which is, and then the day after the 7th Sabbath is to be the Feast of Pentecost. So, notice this next calendar here. This would be the 2nd month. There were actually, I want to look back at that first calendar one more time. Notice if you count there, you count the days, the 16th through the 29th. How many days would that be? 7 and 7. So there's 14 days. And now in the 2nd month, you would have 30 days, because you never have a 29 and a 29 day in a row. It would be 29 and then 30 days. So here we have 30 days the next month. So you have the 14th day the first in the first month, now 30 days in the 2nd month. That is a total of 44 days. Now in the 3rd month, we would count an additional 6 days. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. On the 6th day of the 3rd month would be when the 50 days are complete. And notice that is the day after the Shabbat. It's on the first day of the week. Now look here, we have the count. First month, 14 days. 2nd month, 30 days. 3rd month, 6 days. That equals 50 days. So that would be on the 6th day of the 3rd month is when Pentecost would be with this calculation. Okay, now let's look at another calendar here, and we'll see a dilemma right away. This is going to be a sample of the Lunar Sabbath calendar, and on the 16th day, this is supposed to be the way the calendar is every single month. So now we're going to count the days again here with the Lunar Sabbath reckoning, and we're going to count 7 Sabbaths, 7 weeks, and the first Sabbath, the first week, would be 14 days out of the first month. So now we go to the next month, and we count the days again. We're going to get 30 days. So we have 14 plus 30. That's 44 days. But notice how many Sabbaths so far. There's been 2 in the first month, and now there's 4 in the 2nd month. So we've got 6 Sabbaths so far. And let's go to the next month. Could we go back to that one more time? Notice what it says here, the calendar here. On the 9th day would be the day after the 7th Sabbath, correct? Do you notice that? This would be the day after the 7th Sabbath, and it is on the 9th day of the 3rd month. But how many days do we have now? We've got a little dilemma, because we already saw that 50 days takes you to the 6th. And now we have a count taking you to the 9th day of the month. Let's notice the calculations, how that would add up. The first month, we would have 14 days. The 2nd month, there would be 30 days. And the 3rd month, there would be 9 days.